better wake up. The world you live in is just a sugar-coated topping. There is another world beneath it, the real world. And if you want to survive it, you better learn.
Yo, welcome to the show. This is your host, me, he who is free, also known as Levi McFly. Lend me your ear, I am here to ponder who, what, where and why. Here to separate truth from lie. Here to defy the all-seeing eye. Here to make it clear, I will not comply. The author rising, podcast talker, the vampire hunter, the daywalker, the alchemist activist. This is alchemical activism, aimed against those who are deranged, whose aim is to hack your vision. If you're slack, you're giving your tacit permission for them to make us fall when they install communism, fascism, globalism, basically turn this world into a prison. These demented Decepticons are on a mission. So listen, you know what? They try to turn us into a robot. Form a trance, transform and make us GoBot. Not me though, I'm a C3 without the PO. Free from the Matrix, I love the Trinity like Neo. Free like liberty, free like a trio. The optimistic, optic mystic, helping you see this reality is not realistic. It's misreported, distorted, scripted, topsy-turvy, upside down, inverted, twisted. No more harming me or harming you. This is full harmony. This is 4free2. No more harming me or harming you. This is full harmony. This is 4free2. No more harming me or harming you. This is full harmony. This is 4free2. No more harming me or harming you. This is full harmony. This is 4free2. Yo, and welcome to the show. This is episode 2 of 4free2, and I have a very special guest for you. Our guest today is Matt Landman. Now, Matt is an activist, a filmmaker, public speaker, and a clothing designer, and he is renowned for his activism and raising awareness of our plight, particularly in regards to geoengineering and also 5G. He is the creator of the film Frankenskies and also the up-and-coming Frankenskies 2 Climate Change. He is the creator of Spiro Clothing, which is a clothing line that offers protection from the dangers of 5G and EMF radiation. He is the creator of the website Actual Activists, which is a great site and source of information. Basically, he's an all-action superhero who's committed to the cause, and he is an excellent speaker on a wide range of issues and a guy that really knows his stuff. So it is a great pleasure and honor to have him on the show. So welcome back.
Hello.
Yo.
So how are you doing?
I'm really well, mate. Really well. As well as can be, always try to be positive. So.
And you go by Levi?
I am Levi. Yeah, you call me Levi. That is actually my real name.
Cool. Where are you? Are you in the city? You're in the UK?
Yeah, I'm in Bristol, England. Where are you, mate? Where are you?
I'm on the West Coast, USA. It's called Ashland, Oregon. It's on the California border at the top of California, in the mountains.
Nice. Sounds nice. I mean, I'm not one for small talk, but when I've got someone like yourself on the show, if I've got to ask, how is the weather?
The weather, yes. It comes and goes. Today the sky is white. A couple of days ago, it was beautiful. We've been getting a lot of rain. They've been giving us the rain this year so they can drought out another part of the country, the Southwest, where the fires are right now. But we've been having actually some really nice weather in between chemtrails, of course. We're doing the show right now?
I'm recording. I did want to just warn you, me being a cheapskate and being in my novice stage, I've only got the standard Zoom. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to have to sort of reset the call and start again around about the half an hour mark because I've only got the 40-minute limit.
Yeah. Cool.
So I've got a timer on, and as soon as it gets to half an hour, I won't just cut in, but that should give us enough time to sort of cut out and come back in. Really frustrating, but yeah, I'm not getting any gains from this. So for the moment, until I find a better alternative, that's the way I've got to rock it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and what's the name of your show, and how long have you been doing it?
4free2 is the name of the show. You're literally my second guest. I've not actually launched it yet.
Cool.
I did an interview with Mark Devlin a couple of weeks back, and I had a nightmare with that one because because it is stupid having to do the Zoom call and restart it and reboot it.
Mhm.
I did that with him and didn't record the second part of the show. So that has been a right palaver.
Mhm.
The positive of it is obviously you learn from your mistakes. So I won't be making that mistake again. So I can guarantee you I'm recording now, and I've got it to set to automatically record. So hopefully that won't happen, and I can just focus on just recording the show and going through it. Whereas with Mark, I've had to sort of redo. I won't go into it. It's a long story, but yes, been a drag. But yeah, really grateful for him. I'm really grateful to you because obviously, as I said, I'm not done any shows. You've got no reason to speak to me, so I appreciate your humility and you being humble enough to give us your time, mate. I really do.
Yeah, of course. You'd be surprised. The likelihood that you're trustworthy is much higher than others. So I'm actually looking forward to the conversation. Everyone else, I'm like on pins and needles. You know what I mean? But yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting take actually. So I might push you on that straight away. I mean, what do
Mhm.
you get encounter? What are you alluding to? Like a lot of sort of, I guess, shills or people trying to create problems for you when you say sort of trust in sort of a random stranger like myself, as opposed to other people that might approach you. What problems have you encountered there? Can you give an insight into that and give some examples?
Well, thanks, Levi, for asking about the trials and tribulations of being an activist. It's for in my world being who I am. And you mentioned Mark Devlin. I love Mark Devlin. He's a great activist as well. Um, in my shoes, so I made the movie Frankenskies, and then I made an EMF silver clothing line, and I'm making a sequel to Frankenskies. And I try to get around. So I go on a lot of podcasts and I do a lot of events and what have you. And even in making the movie Frankenskies, I went from like being very naive to meeting a bunch of activists and trusting them and then learning I don't trust a lot of them and then why don't I trust them and stuff like that. So it's hard for people, especially activists who have a kind heart, to grasp that some of activism is actually hijacked, controlled. It's called controlled opposition, also called shills. And the narrative to be controlled by the bad guys, it's very opportunistic for them because if someone's shoes are filled with like their people, it's a lot better for them. They're not a risk at all. They're not going to expose anything that they don't want to expose, and they get to tell them exactly how to put the narrative, in what shape and form, put it in the space of fear and what have you.
Right.
So, I'll tell you, yes, it's a relief to talk to you because I've come into different podcast hosts and what have you that aren't on the level in the end. They're not on the level, and so um, well, there's little tiny red flags, but then there's bigger red flags. Like if someone tries to like provoke me in my real world or something like that, and what have you. But it seems like different people are always trying to, push my buttons in one way or another. Like I did a show last night. I did a show yesterday. So I've done about 600 podcasts and radio shows thereabout.
Wow.
And this one last
Good
night
work.
really, thank you. And the reason why I haven't mentioned something like this, which I try not to, I try to just answer questions and not, talk too much um, smack or whatever. Can we curse on this one there or what?
Dude, this is 4free2. So, feel free. This is a free show, and the point of it is to feel free to talk and express yourself as you need to. If there's any point or objective to the show, that is it. So I have no limits, no bounds. I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to enjoy yourself. I want to enjoy myself. So say what you got to say, man. Do what you got to do. And yeah, just feel free, man. Feel free.
I I love it, Levi. So what's I thought it meant 432 hertz. What does 432 mean for your show?
4free2 is
Mhm.
it's a combination of things. It is representative of that sort of harmonic frequency,
Mhm.
the whole idea of trying to be in alignment with the natural workings and the cycles, that kind of thing. But it's also literally 4free2, as in for freedom, you know. So it's just a little play. It's open. It represents kind of, I guess it kind of represents gematria in a way. It sort of represents sort of words being numbers, numbers being words. It represents duality in that kind of sense. I could go on, do you know what I mean? But
Mhm. Love
it's
it.
yeah, it's just an idea that I've sort of gone with.
So I was on this show last night, who will
Yes,
remain nameless, and it seems like a lot of okay. So check this out, Levi. You are, I'm sure, an open-minded truth seeker, and I could only imagine you heard of Event 201, right?
I have. Yes,
So just before the pandemic, Event 201 was a scenario where these governments and elitists and Bill Gates, it was hosted by Bill Gates, I believe.
oh, not him
Um,
again.
so they come together, right? They come together, and before it was, I believe, November 2019, before the whole shit show happens, and they come together and
Conveniently,
they come together and use this supercomputer to run a program through, which is the entire scenario of the lockdowns and the masks and how many people and how the people are going to react and how they think the people are going to react. And then
yeah,
the quantum supercomputer gets to get input data as it goes. So I honestly think that when they said that there's going to be anal swabs, that was just the quantum computer wanting a feedback loop to see if they were correct on their assumptions of how humanity would react to that, right? Like, not very many people were getting in line for that one, and they probably wanted that as data, is how I kind of saw that.
so a
But
psychological probe as such, rather than a
mhm,
physical one.
so during that whole Event 201 scenario, the quantum computer tells the people running the scenario, that they should come out with it's termed the flood. Okay, it's a flood of information and misinformation, media and alternative media. So during the time of like the first happenings of it all, there was so much flood of information. Even myself, who questions everything, I was like, what is going on? What is really going on? Is there going to be martial law tomorrow? Is there really going to be body bags coming out my neighbors? Who knows what was really happening? And I really had to go deep inside because everyone was calling me, asking me what the heck, because they looked to me as the conspiracy guy. And so my conclusion was that it was total BS, right? But the quantum computer told the people, the bad guys, to come out with a flood called the flood of media. So you've got the mainstream media, every broadcasting channel on the planet saying all sorts of stuff. People dropping dead in Wuhan and blah 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 blah, and all this, kind of conflicting information. Really, if you look at it, like 99 point whatever survival rate, but then people are having seizures and dropping dead in Wuhan. That's conflicting information, and within that flood of information, primarily fear mongering, you manipulate people because they're just confused. And then if they're confused and they're not microbiologists, they end up basically just taking authority as the truth rather than truth as the authority.
Yeah,
Now, at the same time, the quantum computer is saying come out with a flood of the alternative media, a controlled flood of alternative media. So alternative media podcasts like Truth 101 or whatever you want to, whatever it is. I don't even know that that's probably not a podcast, but either way, like
yeah,
all of these different podcasts you can have that are out there now. There's so many right now. A lot of them came out in March 2020, right as all of this came unraveling. And the idea is to just control a flood of information. Basically, George Soros and Bill Gates and whoever else that wanted to confuse everybody and get them, uh, you know, listening to what they had to say in a fear-based mindset and eating the truth out of their hands or whatever it is, the message that they want to convey, the truth mixed with lies, is usually what it is.
Yeah.
They basically came out with, I believe, like 100 freaking podcasts in March of 2020, like the bad guys, alternative media podcasts. So I've been having to wade through these. Uh, I mean, I'm trying to not curse too bad. These people, I've been having to deal with some of these people. So a lot of
Don't
them
worry
behind the
about
scenes.
cursing. Like I said, feel free. Just speak how.
These
Just be
cunt,
natural.
well, I love in the UK, you guys use the word cunt all the time with these cunts. I've had to deal with these fucking cunts, man. So eventually they realized that I was legit, that I wasn't like selling my soul or whatever. So they're basically teaming up on me behind the scenes, but being like, yeah, come on our show, come on our show. So there's all these red flags. And last night, the red flag, right, was we got in this argument of whether or not I was legit because I'm still alive.
Oh, that one.
And then
Yeah. That's
and
a bit fired,
afterwards
isn't it?
I was so mad, man, because that wasn't even the conversation we were having, dude. We were having a conversation about whistleblowers. And I said, well, it seems like actual whistleblowers, they're actually whistleblowers for like the whoever in SA or whatever, that they get killed. That I doubt the credibility of real whistleblowers, that they're probably controlled op. And dude is like, well, how come you're alive? And like I got so defensive, and I had some coffee and I wasn't grounded enough to actually be like, yo, I'm not a whistleblower. For one, that's false logic. Like he's kind of trying to get me defending my life, which is a great movie, Defending Your Life from the
Yeah.
80s. I love movies. So so anyways, at the end of the day, it's like that's weird energy. And so I've gone on other podcasts, and then when I realized after I've hyper analyzed them, because that's what my crazy brain does after I go on a podcast. I think about it for like 48 hours. And another big red flag is like the podcast like starts off the show with, "Oh, it's really bad being an activist, isn't it, Matt? You probably get death threats all the time." And it's like
They're
it's
like
frequency.
setting you
It's
up.
frequency. Yeah, it sets me up and it makes everyone out there not inspired. Like it's frequency warfare, And if you listen to someone's work and you don't even want to go outside because you're so entrenched in fear now, think about the fact that they might just be getting a paycheck from some agency to be who they are. Like that exists. And people don't fathom it. It's quite something. There are think tanks and very evil people, or maybe even not people, maybe they're soulless, but they are out to get us. And it's hard to think in the eyes or be in the shoes of a sociopath because we're kind-hearted, humans. But yeah, talking to you is refreshing because for one, your podcast didn't come out in March of 2020. Now I'm not just saying that every single podcast that came out in March of 2020 is bogus, but I've realized that there's this thing called the flood, and it happened, and I'm witnessing it firsthand.
Yeah, it's interesting observation because I have noticed an exponential increase in people, podcasters and content creators and so forth. And you've got to be suspicious. There's a part of me that hope that it's kind of a natural consequence of, the turbulence times that we're in. And as a
Mhm.
result of them obviously making those big steps, people are going to react to that. And hopefully there'll be a positive reaction. I'm sure some of it is authentic, but yeah, I
Mhm.
don't doubt that they're stepping up their game. I guess we've just got to step up our game as well. That's why I'm trying to take action now, because I could be considered to be one of these guys that's just popping up. As you said, I didn't come up at that exact time, but I can assure you I've been planning to do this for a long time. And if anything, I guess that kick up the ass to get my shit together, because there's no time anymore. For whatever reason, things take time, and the time is now. So yeah, I know you've been at it for a long time, and I guess when you get these people and you're speaking to them, as you said, you get certain red flags straight away. What do? They kind of try and tee you to go in a certain direction, and you know what they're trying to achieve straight away from how they're approaching the conversation in the first place, I guess.
Well, it's not healthy to be suspicious of everybody, and I've gotten in that kind of vibration myself, and I'm not trying to go there, and I don't want to like raise any suspicion on yourself or anything like that, or myself or anybody's podcast out there. But it is important to not be naive. And
Yeah.
the thing is instead of, okay, for the chemtrails, people that are still asleep, they don't want you pointing out the chemtrails and being like, look at those crazy chemtrails, they're killing us, or they're blocking the sun, or they're making it rain, or whatever. The more gentle approach is, wow, look at this beautiful blue day with no clouds, no planes. It's gorgeous out. What a contrast it was to yesterday. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
a
it's kind of hard to have that conversation in my country, I'm afraid, because it's always clouds. It's pretty much always grey. So, yeah,
my point being is that there's a more hope-based strategy, and in the podcast host kind of space, there's always going to be an opportunity to judge a tree by its fruits. You know, what we put out, and yes, people make mistakes, and oh man, maybe you'll interview someone who ends up not being who they say or whatever. You know, everyone makes mistakes. But in the end, the truth reveals itself because there's always like a bandwagon that doesn't resonate or something. You know, there's so many opportunities and so many false flags and so many chances. And if you really are on that truth spectrum and truth tip, it starts to feel in your gut when it's wrong. And if you're propagating stuff that's wrong, then there you have it. You know, you're on the weird side of the coin. What's a good example? So here's an interesting example. There was the trucker thing in Canada, especially. And
yeah,
so the trucker thing is it was nice, and it was, and I'm not saying that everybody that was supportive of the trucker thing was necessarily bad, but sometimes these things are hijacked. It's not the best example. Like
no,
there's
go into that because, to be honest, I kind of lost track of the trucker thing. I know it was all going off, and it's been one thing after another. So I guess I think even that's part of the psyop is trying to keep on track. You can't. So I don't know where that
you
trucker
can't
thing
keep
went in
up.
the end. Yeah, I think we sort of
Yeah,
went from
so
that truckers thing, and then all of a
you
sudden you
can't
got
keep up.
Ukraine and the war
Hmm.
there, and
Yeah,
trucker
yeah.
things just disappeared. Even COVID seems to have almost just disappeared. I don't know what it's like in your country. But in my country, we sort of dropped all the restrictions. Things seem like, hopefully they've got better, but you've had no time to reflect on that because within like 2 days, suddenly we're at war with Ukraine. And, so let's just jump to the next psyop, it seems. So literally, we've had
Mhm.
no time to take a breath and reflect on what's going on because there's something else going on. So, yeah, I don't know what happened to the truckers thing. So, yeah, carry on and then share your thoughts on that if you've got any, because I'm quite
Well,
distant from that situation, really.
firstly, when you say we haven't had time to reflect on the previous psyop, what I hear is we haven't had time to process this trauma. Okay, these are
Yeah.
traumatic experiences that we literally need closure on. There's a process in our psyche mentally, and if we're kept in a state fight or flight, it's fight, flight, or freeze. And you learn it through understanding of PTSD and what have you. But we're very much beings of particular design. Our brains act a certain way. We're beings of rhythm. We sleep at night. We're groggy in the morning. You know, like
Yeah.
everything works a certain way. And if we can't get out of fight or flight and we just get thrown the next thing, we don't think for ourselves essentially in the end is part of that. It's interesting to understand how deep the psychology goes. So for the truckers, intuitively, and no one wants to hear that like either way. First it was intuitively, but intuitively it's based on facts and stuff like that when I come to conclusions.
Oh,
I did
I'm a big ambassador for intuition. You know that the word
awesome.
itself is tuition from within. So
Oh
yeah,
cool.
I'm not got any trouble with that. I think that's a big part of the disconnect is we're disconnected from having that faith in ourselves or whatever that intuition is. But yeah, don't feel
Well
free to talk about that, man.
it's super important, and I learned it actually in the stock market, which sounds crazy, but I was just a kid trying to make money, is what it was. You know,
Yeah.
16 years old, 16 years old, and my dad had like screwed us over. My mom's crying, and we didn't have money for the bills. And like going and getting some job and making $9 an hour didn't seem. I mean, I tried. I was like a busboy. I was like a kid. I was just a kid trying to help my mom. But instead, and also I learned about stocks, and then it took like 30 years to like understand it as well as I do. But in that time frame, about 30 years, about 3 decades of obsessing over the stock market, I would wake up in the morning, and in that groggy state, when you're in between and you're just waking up in the morning, I would think, "Oh man, did I make money today? Did I lose money today?" And I would end up asking my gut every morning. I started this conversation with my gut that ended up not just being stocks, it ended up being other things, and now it's activism and stuff. And most always, my gut responds, and always it's accurate if it responds. If I can feel the knot in my stomach, then it's a no, and there's a resonance to the yes, and what have you. And so that's when I was first questioning the lockdowns and all that during March 2020, and everyone's actually calling me and literally like, I need an answer from you. What's going on, Matt? And I was like, can't we just feel this out? Why do you need an answer from me? I'm like, I'm living it one day at a time. Can't you? But I had to go deep, and what I felt is like it's the common cold being rebranded or the flu or whatever. And I was right the whole time. So
Yeah.
with the truckers, it was intuition and facts, and it started especially in Canada. But it was it was a psyop, so obvious to me. The the GoFundMe, which I've tried GoFundMe's, and I've got 60,000 followers on Facebook, which that was really hard to do, and it's pretty limited now with censorship. Like it hardly moves that number. But even when the censorship wasn't as prevalent, and I do a Facebook Live and I'd see 1,000 people on the horn, what have you, I still could hardly raise money on GoFundMe. I mean, it's a struggle. And to see that GoFundMe go up to like $7 million so fast, and then the people running the GoFundMe, there were two names. One of the names was completely hilariously um, fake. It was something.
What do you mean, like the name itself was fake?
Yeah, the name was fake. It was like something about a blowjob. It was BJ Dichter.
I've heard
BJ
this.
Dichter
It's
was the
funny.
was one of the yeah.
Sorry, no, sorry.
Go ahead.
You carry on. I was going to say I've got Old Damgard as my next guest, and I've heard him. You know Old Damgard, Ollie Damgard. He sort of specializes in the false flags and that kind of thing.
Oh no, I'm not very good at names. I just do
No, oh okay.
going
Well,
on stuff. Yeah.
he's he's made a lot of reference to how they use these sort of sexual terms within the names, and they use all these fake names all the time. So that's just a funny connection you've made there, especially because he's my next guest as well. So it's a nice little sync for me to link you to my next guest and link. It's all connected somehow. So you saying that only adds power and strength to what he's saying. So yeah, carry on. Sorry to cut in there, but just
Oh, you
yeah.
have to do it. You have to do it. Please cut in on me. And if I am really feeling uh, distracted by you cutting in, I'll write down a word so I remember what I'm talking about. So I
Yeah.
know what I'm. So no worries, mate. Please, you have to, because I just will ramble on and on.
No, you carry
Um,
on. I want to hear you speak, not myself. But
well, what
yeah,
I want to know what he has to say on your next show is that I feel like there is this necessity for the elite or whoever, the shadow players, the shadow brotherhoods. There is a disclosure. They have to disclose
yeah,
karmic disclosure so that they don't get in trouble for what they're doing, basically in karmic court, or to brainwash us in a sense, maybe where it's like, oh, they wouldn't just tell us, they wouldn't just make a movie about us and tell, they wouldn't just make a movie and show us, what they're doing to us, kind of thing. So people are like socially engineered when it's hidden in plain sight. Maybe it's that, but I'd like his take on the karmic aspect because I do feel there's some sort of necessity for disclosure and a necessity to have us do it to ourselves in a sense, if you know what I mean. Like, I
yeah.
mean,
I actually had that conversation with Mark
mhm,
on the previous show, going into sort of predictive programming and sort of questioning whether it's a case of them just a part of them, they're just so arrogant, they're just taking the piss, they're having a joke at our expense, mocking
mhm,
us. But then at the
mhm,
same time, they are, as you sort of alluded to yourself, they're sort of playing with this cosmic karma, and they're making us. I always use the analogy of the vampire. They need to be invited in, so
Hmm.
they need that
Exactly.
invitation, so that you're ultimately powerless, because you, in their sick sort of twisted mind, you was already told about it, so you've got no excuse, I guess, as such. Maybe something
Yeah.
along those lines. But
So the crowd fund for the Canadian trucker thing. Okay, so for people that do not know, oh, and then also when something goes completely viral, especially in my space, in my world, I mean, on Facebook or something like that, I can see when things are going viral. I'll get the same topic message to me over and over and over, and I can just it's easy to witness from my perspective with the followers that I have and where I'm at on social media and what have you. And so the truckers was a red flag immediately when it started coming out. And so for people that don't know, there was a supposed truckers strike. So the people that drive goods around in trucks, um, which are living day to day, they get paid by the mile, mind you. It's like, I don't know, 30 cents or something like that.
right,
Like they get paid by the kilometer, that they drive. They supposedly were, and then not that they're being forced to get the jab or anything either. They weren't being forced to get it, but supposedly they were all of a sudden saying, we're going to go on some sort of strike in solidarity for the people that are being subject to the jab, you know,
yeah,
and with no clear like demands necessarily, right? There was supposedly like these like worldwide, especially in Australia and Canada. I didn't see anything really come together in the U.S. Although there's supposed to be like there was talk of all this in the U.S. I saw a lot of stuff about it, but especially in the capital of Canada, Ottawa, and I supposedly in Australia and what have you. But all it takes is a couple photos and a meme saying 1 million people are here, la ti da. So that was like the official narrative is and the official narrative is like this isn't getting mainstream attention, therefore it must be real. And so that was a narrative going around, which I believe is like a psyop narrative. Like there was like like agent like controlled opposition writing articles saying because this isn't going to the mainstream, it must be real. But then it hit the mainstream like very shortly into it, like Wall Street Journal and everything, like the main front page. So either way, these truckers go to Canada and they sit there and jam up traffic in downtown Ottawa. So what happened was this crazy freak like ice storm hits during that, and it's like negative temperatures and it's really cold. But not just that, but the crowd fund wasn't able to go to the people. But that was obvious to me. Like, how were the truckers going to get the 7 million, $8 million that the number kept going up? So that was crazy. So okay, so let me just back up. So all these truckers rallied in these different cities, and I'm like even going on these videos and saying I don't really think people should jump on board this one. And I was accosted. I was such an evil person for
I
having
think I
done
recall
so.
that. I do follow you on Facebook, and I see you pop up on the feed, and I recall
Oh,
you at
cool.
the time making that point of being wary. You know,
Yeah,
which
well, I mean, who cares what I have to say? This is just my opinion, you know what I mean? And people were so upset. Like, how dare you? These truckers are risking their blah 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 and la ti da. And I lost some friends, especially some Canadian friends. But I'm sticking to my guns on what I believe, which even if it was legit, it wasn't going to go anywhere. And the truckers are necessary for our supply chain. We don't have rail like you guys do. We do not have a rail system like you guys do. And
okay,
the rest of the world doesn't understand that. The truckers are our everything. California hardly has a rail at all. All the goods are going up and down on trucks. The whole country is just trucks going everywhere. Like that's the bread and butter. And so what this did was it got Elon Musk involved, and all of a sudden he's got a fleet of self-driving vehicles because them going on strike created this like demand for trucks that can't go on strike. So that's one. These autonomous trucks started coming out because of that, and that's acceptance for it because well, we can't rely on them because they're just going to go on strike and what have you.
Yeah.
And then the crowd fund of the 8 million or whatever dollars in Canada, it never got to anybody. And supposedly the bank accounts of the donators, of people who donated to the crowdfunding in Canada, the bank accounts got frozen. Now, this could have just been like fear mongering, like media, but it was in the media that the bank accounts got frozen. I couldn't find or talk to anybody whose bank account actually got frozen, so I don't really know. But I stopped my crowdfund for Frankenskies 2, which is on GoFundMe. I'm boycotting GoFundMe because it's all part of some weird agenda. And if you look it up, GoFundMe and Elon Musk and Tesla and all that, they're in the same city. They're like neighbors.
Yeah.
These people are working hand in hand, and at the end of the day, nothing happened. There was even more enforcement on it all in Canada. They busted it up, and it was just another psyop, and it's even in those Illuminati playing cards. Do you know about these things?
Yeah, I've seen them and heard of them, and yeah, I'm aware they seem to be keep playing those cards as such.
Yeah, so every single little thing that comes up nowadays, it seems to be just another little one of those.
Yeah,
And
another
to
card
to
played.
get yeah, another card played, keep us confused. And each one comes with a whole layer of conspiracy theorist bots, conspiracy theorist trolls, conspiracy theorist controlled oppositions and what have you, podcasts and whatever, to attack the truth. The narrative is attack on truth. And it really is an information war at the end of it all. But I think it's also forcing us to go within, to really just trust ourselves and to learn to discern and to see it all without being told how to see it, to really see it on our own is how it's going to help us evolve, I feel.
Well, I guess on that basis, they're helping us out in a way. Yeah, we just lost Matt for a minute because, as I alluded to earlier in the show, we are using Zoom, and Zoom gives you a limit of 40 minutes. So I've got to cut in and cut back out, which is really frustrating. And I can assure you, this is the last show I'll be doing this. I will find other methods. So it's a bit of an interruption, but Matt will be back really quickly. So stay tuned. Here he is, he's back now. So let us commence. On the subject of GoFundMe, going back to that, I think I might have to find some alternatives because I need a bit of funding so I can stop this nonsense. It sort of does break the rhythm, so apologies about that. But yeah, we're back. We are recording again, thank goodness. So I'm not making that mistake again. So where
Yeah,
were
there's
we?
different ways. I think that it's a real struggle for the activist in the world to. I mean, what a what do you call it? A work of passion, like this is bringing the truth to the world, but how to make it so that it also can bring sustenance to the person that's putting it out there. It's hard. Like Mark Devlin made a book. I have my movie, which definitely didn't make any money, but I do now sell it for $3, and that does well. That's pretty much breaking even. But I'm able to sell the DVD, which is exciting. But now that I've been able to finally start a silver clothing line, I've turned activism into making money, but it takes time. And at first, I did a lot of different crowd funds to do conferences. They were all GoFundMe at the time. And I'm so thankful for all of that. And I think that you should have something too. So there's different options, and people use them. And whatever one's like the most popular over there. I know there's like an app where you can just have as much as you want. My friend Lachlan, Transcending Explorations, he's got a show in Sydney, Australia. But I'll have to talk to you after the show and figure out a good way. But I think that it's very important that podcasts get supported. And I have a website, actualactivists.com. And eventually I want to have that as like a platform for cool podcasts and literally make it like, I mean, come on, there's too much free content out there and everyone's saying the same stuff. It should be like you got to pay 50 cents to listen. That'd be fine. That'd be fine, I think. I think people should have to pay to play and um, make it worth it for everyone out there. This whole like everything's free. I mean, you get what you pay for, right? Like
Yep.
I don't know.
Completely.
I think it's important. I think it's important. So there's that. Oh, I wanted to ask. So I'm working on Frankenskies 2, the
Yes.
sequel to my movie. So I made a movie, Frankenskies, and it came out in 2017. And it's a historical chronological documentary about weather engineering, weather modification, chemtrails, etc. It starts off in the 1920s. And so if you just watch the first 20 minutes, it's very eye-opening because it goes in the chronology, the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and by the time the movie gets to the Vietnam Ho Chi Minh Trail being flooded during the war in Vietnam, it's self-evident that the weather is likely engineered now and that they've been hiding it, and that the consciousness of not even knowing that we can make rain over forest fires is a consciousness that needs to shift in the right direction. So I'm making a movie, a sequel to Frankenskies called Frankenskies 2: Climate Chains, uh, chains like shackles.
Yep. Yep. Good name. I like it.
Yeah, because of the Hegelian dialectic that I've been witnessing with everything. And it's George Hegel. He's this German philosopher of the turn of the century that coined this phrase, um, the master-slave dialectic. And for those that don't know, it's this problem, reaction, solution, which it's good to remind ourselves that this is like everywhere all the time now. Because I've still got these I I go outside right now, and there's gonna be 1 out of every 5 people walking down the street still wearing a mask or 2, mate. It's crazy, and we're in the spring, it's beautiful out.
Yeah, well,
It's
I did mean to ask you about that at some stage. What I don't know what things are like your side,
it's
America.
over,
How?
everything's fine except for these
Yeah.
cunts walking around like idiots.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got the same area. They've dropped all restrictions, and
They're perpetuating the
yeah,
nonsense. They're like, "No, we wanna live in fear, please bring it back," and I'm just like, "Oh
yeah.
my god."
It's like they're almost enjoying it. They can't let go. It's sad, but yeah. I try
It
not
is.
to.
It is sad. It's really something because, like, I wanted to fight to take the masks off, and I wanted to fight for that, and now they're kind of fighting to keep them on, which is it's something else. If you think about word magic, so we have a co-op. It's a grocery store that's like organic food, farmers and local and stuff like that. And at it was the strictest grocery store out of them all, which you would think like the chain stores or something like that. But no, the cute little organic, the one that I really want to go to is the one with the armed security guard out front, right? They're
Right.
in all this. And he's like, I've got a mask for you. And it's like, look, I don't want to put on a mask at all. And he's like, well, you have to put on a mask. And it's like, okay, I'll put the bandana over my face or something to buy an organic orange if I have to, which I ended up, I mean, it was a whole like, what do you call it? Um, the dark night of the soul or for whatever for me. Like at first I was like, I'm never going in that grocery store again. I'm gonna burn it to the ground is what I said. I said I literally I'm like screaming, I'm never going like I'm not going inside because they adopted such a strict mentality. But eventually it's like I'm driving to the next town to buy groceries for my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Eventually it's like, okay, I'll put a bandana over my face and like and observe this social experiment and whatever. And then as soon as it let up, I mean, like what they did here. What they did here is they let it up for a couple months, and then they were like, "Oh no, it's back. You got to put it back on." And when it was time to put it back on, at that point, I think it's been such an amazing double-edged sword because at that point, I was like, "Hell no! You think I'm gonna put it back on? I'm not playing this game. Like, you told me I could take it off. You made me put it on. You let me take it off. Now you're trying to make me put it back on. I'm saying no. Finally, I'm saying no. There's no way. I'm never doing it again. And that's where I stood. You know, a lot of people did it different ways. Some people never put it on. Some people are still wearing it while they sleep. You know what I'm saying? There's different variations of it.
Yeah. Sure. I mean,
So
did
with
they were they forcing you then? Because I it was a great relief to me when I found out in my country that even though they kind of give you the impression you had to wear a mask, you didn't actually have to. And I found as soon as I found out, it's such a relief because I was the same. I didn't want to go into any shop that's forcing it. The only way I could justify wearing a mask, I started putting my own propaganda on the mask. So I'd only wear my mask that was sort of saying it's a scam, and I could only justify wearing a mask on that basis. But once I got that green light that I didn't have to wear a mask. I just told the guy at the door if I ever got questioned, I'm not wearing one, and that was it. I found in my country that was it. That was fine. Wherever you went,
Mhm.
if they approached you, just tell them no, and they backed off immediately.
Yeah, that sounds like Texas or something. That's nice. So where I live, it's not so free, and the people are way more brainwashed. So in the city that I live in, it's like they're not quote unquote forcing you, but every single place wouldn't let you inside unless you put one on.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there was that. And so what I found remarkable with the wordplay and the gematria and all that stuff, and I believe that these narratives are planned for centuries. I mean, I believe that during World War II, that the moon landing and the television and all of this was thought out. That they were like, no, we're gonna play the slow game. There's no way we can continue a world domination. We have to do it differently, you know. And so they're much more slick than we think in terms of like thinking things out, like and passing it down to the next generation of evildoers, and being like, we're going to do it this way, slowly, 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 slowly. It's something. So oh yeah, so here's the deal. I think it's unreal that the way that it evolved is, as I'm trying to get into my organic grocery store, there's now an armed guard with blue one-time use surgical medical masks, which are criminal. You know, these are
Oh,
membrane.
second-hand ones.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
no, no, I wish. I mean, that'd be even weirder. But they're the membrane that you're breathing through is this PTFE polytetrafluoroethylene, and that's synthetic fluoride. And there's membranes, and there's so many reasons why these masks are bad, right? And the sign that he's standing under, okay, this is all over the world, all over the country, the English speaking world. It reads entrance, okay, in trance. He's handing you a blue mask, which I never put these medical masks on, you know. And I went through this whole thing where I, like I said, I wanted to get groceries for my family. I didn't do it, and then finally I was putting on a bandana, and then I wouldn't do it, and it's like, you want to put it on me, you'll have to, kill me trying. And then when they did let up, I was like the only person in the store with my face out, and then that was a whole thing, and people screaming at me. But they did let up eventually, where there wasn't a guard, right? But
right.
the idea of, in all of this tangent, for the word in trance, it's embedded in everybody's psyche. Exit, the word exit, I don't think it's breaking you out of the trance you just got put in. Okay, you're going into a store, there's fluorescent lights, everything's all colorful. You've just restricted your airflow to your freaking body. There's an armed security guard putting you in fight or flight, handing you a blue mask where everyone has to cover their face and all look the same, which is part of this like um, total hive mind. Um, oh, what do you call it? Stockholm syndrome. Like, we're losing our identities. All of these things are going on. And the word in trance, even if it's just subconscious, it's really deep. These things are
Oh,
really
it is deep.
purposeful.
I mean, I don't. If you could just apply that to COVID, probably just the whole point of entering a shop and the consumerism and getting you in the trance to buy the goods. I've never thought about it before, but that's an amazing observation. I love the word plays, and they're everywhere. That's another one. So,
Well, even
hello.
the word, yeah, even the word conspiracy theorist, it was coined by the CIA. I'm sure a lot of us know, to deflect things from the JFK assassination. And the word contrail, now that we have now that, since we're talking to me, I was going to talk about myself in the third person. Now that we have Matt on as a guest, now that I'm here talking, we can talk about the word contrail, which is also a con. They want to tell you that it's condensation trail or what have you. The word chemtrail was created by the Air Force to basically control that argument. The word geoengineering was created as well. And through the controlled opposition, it was enforced in the activism community. You have to use this word instead of chemtrails. Chemtrails is the dirty word. Geoengineering is the, you know, um, scientific word for spraying. But in the end, geoengineering was like this word that got normalized through the media. So it was always a plan to use it to pretend like they're going to use it to save ourselves, if that makes any sense. But the contrail is a trick, okay, to get us divided. So we're like, oh, what's that in the sky? And then even the truth community, through this division in the activism community by design. Okay, so who's spraying all this stuff in the sky? For one, NASA has a budget of $50 million a day. NASA has a chemtrail program. They call it CARE, just to rub it in our
NASA.
faces. Yeah. They have a
Okay.
chemtrail program called CARE, CARE, and it's it stands for Charged Aerosol Release Experiment. I believe that's an anagram. Um, so the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment the NASA program, they have a fleet of planes and drones and even these patented barium release rockets that go back to the 70s. And once you start to see what they have, you can identify short trails in the sky, medium trails in the sky, long trails in the sky by these different patented NASA spraying programs. So NASA, with this budget of $50 million a day, they have a very
Sorry,
big,
50 million, did you say a day?
per day. They have a
Wow.
really big chemtrail program ongoing. Okay, so they're one of them, along with many other programs that work in conjunction with these other spraying programs. One of them is the Department of Energy, like dirty energy, coal and oil, and they have a whole tropospheric aerosol program. The CIA has a program called stratospheric aerosol injection and solar radiation management. There's climate engineering programs, and there's a plethora of them ongoing. And in that budget, they have the budget for their version of controlled opposition, which actually there's an Unreal document. I mean, there's so many things that you can just find if you look on the internet well enough, which is again just like hidden in plain sight. Is a disclosure. It seems like it's disclosure. They could hide these things from us very easily, but the one of the aspects that I found very fascinating was this, and this is really something to wrap your head around. There's this meeting in Washington D.C. every single year, and it's called a civil society actors meeting on geoengineering. And the civil society actors, which I took a screenshot of what the word civil society actors meant when I first was digging into this in 2015, and
Yeah.
and the definition has totally changed since then. But the definition back when I was researching it was a civil society actor is a non-governmental participant in society that directs and shifts the will of the public. So they're trying to convince the public to think certain ways. So be it someone that's a news anchor in the media, or a pretend um, socialite, or you know some sort of actor or whatever, celebrity or activist, you name it, right? There's also these different aspects that they can control, and they control the narrative on even the words that are spoken by creating activism and controlling it. So when the word contrail was coming into the vernacular, they had activists going out there and being like, this is a contrail, this is a chemtrail, and doing shows on it and writing books on it, and explaining to people, getting this polarity created.
Just to
So then
clarify, about a contrail, from where they're coming from, the argument is a condensation trail. Is that correct? I
that's
I know it
the
doesn't mean
official,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's
yeah, the
the
official
official narrative.
bullshit version. Yeah.
Yeah, the official bullshit narrative is there's a condensation trail coming out of planes, because out of the engines there's a claim that there's this heat, and that the heat would make a trail, like how when you blow your breath out on a cold humid day you can get the exhaust coming out of your mouth or whatever. So the problem with that is it's all lies. So firstly, the play on words is something else. There's so many of those out there, but the con is on us, and there is no contrail anymore. The engines have been updated. The contrails existed back in the 60s when the engines were totally different. These fighter jets and what have you, F-16 and stuff like that, they'll produce a contrail because jet engines are different. Jet engines are on the back of the plane, and they're literally pushing the plane forward, propelling them with like a jet engine. I mean, I'm sorry, with like a rocket engine on the back, like with thrust. And that's different. And you'll see, the fighter jets, they do leave a trail because there is a teeny little, what's been coined a contrail because of the heat coming out of the back. The engines that are on planes nowadays, starting back in the 1960s, and outfitted by Rolls-Royce and General Electric, these engines are called high bypass turbofan jet engines. So what a high bypass turbofan engine is it's like a big propeller, but encased to keep it nice and like safe and efficient. But it's like a propeller. It's just creating wind, blowing air to create lift over the wings. All right. A lot of people don't know that planes only use jet fuel to take off and land. They're not burning crazy jet fuel to go across the Atlantic Ocean. Like, where's all that jet fuel anyways? It'd be way too heavy. It wouldn't even fit in the plane. What they use is this air compressor, battery powered air compressor unit to keep these turbines spinning. There's no heat coming out of these things. These 2-ton titanium and steel Rolls-Royce high bypass turbofan jet engines are easily researched, and they actually disappear when they slammed into the Pentagon on 9/11, which is mixing the cool researches of truth or conspiracies together. But if you look at like where the engines would have hit the Pentagon, where the windows are, glass windows, these 2-ton titanium and steel engines just disappeared into thin air. And if you research them, they're just turbines. I've been doing a lot of self-reflection, and my dad was actually a pilot, and I flew around with him a lot. And come to find out, I put some contrails on his tombstone, which I haven't told anybody that before. But anyways, he passed. He had a heart attack, and he was a pilot, and I didn't know anything about any of it. And I put a plane with like some, going through the clouds with a contrail or whatever you want to call it on the back. So that those don't exist anymore, and it's because the engines aren't blasting heat or anything like that. They're just spinning turbines, creating lift over the wings. So you'll see short trails outside when you look, and you're like, "Oh, what about that, Matt? There's a short trail." You would not believe how many drones there are, or planes disguised as real planes, or maybe even, the Ryanair and stuff like that. Some of these passenger jets might have outsourcings under the guise of saving us from global warming. Geoengineering is being slowly normalized as a solution. They're saying they're not doing it, that they're going to do it soon. But I mean, since when have they told the truth of when they actually start doing something that they're saying they're going to do that's good for us? It's like they are doing it under the guise that it's good, that it's slowing down global warming, which is also a crock of shit. And then they're convincing us through all these discrepancies, how not to think for ourselves. And one of them is this contrail story. So here is how it goes down. On a nice clear day, if you ever get one, I know you guys, it's rarity, but if you have a clear day, that's a clean palette for them, or an empty soup pan. I like to relate it to the analogy to either a canvas or baking or cooking a soup. So when you cook a soup really good, you make a base, and then you put the other ingredients in later. And if you make a painting really well, you get the painting and you prime it first with a layer of paint, and then you paint your painting on top. So there's primer planes, primer gases. They lay out chemicals, and then there's other chemicals that are laid out, and then a third round of chemicals are your persistent linear cirrus cloud formations, otherwise known as chemtrails, these long ones. So what happens is you get a clear day, which I had a few days ago where I live in Ashland, Oregon. And then usually after the clear day, which we don't get many of those anymore, that's their cleanup. They have a clean slate to do their mixing of chemicals, or what NASA said in the presentation that I found was they use the atmosphere as a laboratory, which they perfected their lab work. Now, what they do is they'll come out with their primer planes first, which are drones, and they'll zigzag the sky with these contrails, these short trails, what are called contrails. They're not contrails. They are a con. They're precursor planes, and they're primarily
the contrails are chemtrails, you're saying?
Yeah, they're barium, I believe.
Correct.
So they're laying out a specific chemical, and they're getting it in the sky, and we can't see it. We cannot see it because of the way that it looks. That's it, the color that it is. It's just some gaseous chemical that we can't see. It does mess with the ozone enough to make the light in the UV. If you get a UV meter, you can see it shift. But the untrained eye can not notice that the sky is hardly even changed at all. So they'll zigzag the sky, and it's what the thing is to wake people up is to bring up a statistical anomaly, which is the irregular pattern of appearance, the uptick in air traffic. You go from a blue sky day of no planes or maybe a plane or two flying by with nothing coming out, because that's normal, nothing. And then on the next day, they're priming the sky, zigzagging all over with these small trails, the contrail, aka barium. And then literally later on that day or the next day, the trails are longer. They're actually a medium-sized trail, which I believe is the strontium. All right. And then after they mix that in and they get their soup going, then this can all happen in one day or it can happen over like a 3-day time frame. I've seen both. Then the final applicant is these long, persistent trails that I believe are the aluminum. And they spread out really well because they're spreading into chemicals that are designed to mix with them to create a chemical reaction, to keep them up there longer, or to charge them a certain way for a certain reason. And then after the chemicals mix, they even zap them to keep them mixed even better, to get them mixed even better with ground-based station intersecting radio waves at a certain frequency designed to agitate those chemicals and cause chemical reactions and heat them up. So they have ground-based stations. What used to be like HARP, which is its antenna array, but now they have all sorts of antenna arrays all over Earth, and they use them to basically microwave a focal point of the atmosphere that has the chemtrails sprayed in it. So it can be like they spray, and it'll be like 10 kilometers, 10 square kilometers of spray. And then they'll zap it once they're done, and you can see the ripples going through it, and they'll create a high pressure and make it rain or bring through weather patterns or create drought or whatever they do. So while we were talking about word magic, I wanted to bring up that contrail debate because that's one of the ways that we are controlled is in the truth community, getting people divided even on the truth. There's so many truthers that maybe they think they're just speaking truth, or maybe they're being told to say what they're saying. I don't know, but a lot of people propagate that contrail story, which I at first thought was true as well. So I can't hate on everybody for saying this, but after you hear what I just said and watch the skies, now you know. It's just like kind of like, okay, let's talk about 9/11 for a second. There's a lot of different versions of that story, and I'm sure that the quantum computer that was given the information for 9/11 told them to come out with a flood of misinformation, disinformation, and real media information just the same, because there's so many different stories. And I believe the official story is that there were no planes at all on 9/11, that there's holograms used,
Sorry, what do you
or
mean the official story, not the official story from the mainstream official
oh
story,
yeah, like the real story,
the
my
truth,
real
so
story.
what actually happened? Yeah, I was saying I'm not aware of that being the official story.
No, no,
I
no.
thought the official story was the
But there's a lot of
hijackers with
there's a lot of
knives or whatever.
yeah,
That
but
nonsense.
there's also truthers that will say that there that there were planes that the government was involved, but that there's the different versions of the story. Basically, there's
So
all these different
you,
versions of the story.
I've heard all these. So
Convoluted.
you're going with the story that planes didn't actually crash into the building, that it was actually like a light show or holograms that kind of depicted planes crashing into the building, and then the buildings, I guess, came down by some other means, something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm all over the place with these subjects, but that's what happened. Yes, because there's no evidence of a plane in the farm field in Pennsylvania. There's no evidence of a plane having hit the Pentagon, and the two planes that supposedly hit the trade centers. There's no real evidence of that either. There's video footage and there's explosions and stuff, but if you really look at it, it's full of holes. it doesn't make sense the way that it supposedly went down. And so that was one of the biggest lies ever pulled over on the world. I firmly believe that we're beings of resonance, and that we have abilities, like like humanity has consciousness, evolutionary process, I believe, and that we're shifting into abilities, whether it be like telepathy or telekinetic, or whatever our abilities are. If we really come into full resonance of truth, we come into like our fullest potential. Let's just say that our fullest potential as humans. But I don't think we can come into our fullest potential if we're resonating, if we're in resonance with falsehoods. And that's part of the design of getting us all believing these lies together, like believing that 9/11 was true and that we need to invade wherever and all these things are to our own benefit because the government's doing good for us and fluoride's good for us or whatever. Believing the lies actually creates it probably triggers some sort of backstop mechanism where we can't come into our fullest potential anymore. Because if we are creator gods, why would we be able to come into our full potential of these amazing badasses if we're like living lies? We'd be creating crap. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I've thought that always kind of like the wars and all these different assaults on us, they have their means to an end, but the sort of the psyop aspect of it is a bigger function of why they do it than the actual end game of why they're doing the um the surface level of whatever they say they're doing. Like a war, yeah, obviously they're going to war. They are going to war. I don't doubt they're going to war. I'm sure they're bombing the countries and they're performing their nefarious acts. But that's one function of it. But then on top of that, I think you alluded to earlier, you said that the trauma of it all is almost more important from the humanity perspective. I don't know why they're doing it, but I've always had that feeling that it's all a psyop and there is some gain for some reason as to why they need to keep us in this fear and this terror and terrorize us. Kind of like I termed it sort of drama-based mind control. It's kind of like the MK Ultra being performed on us collectively on a level that doesn't even bear thinking about really. But there's definitely something going on there. I see it completely and I feel it, and I think we all do, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Unfortunately, so I know exactly where you're coming from. It's all a psyop, it seems. And yeah, we're at war. The war is a mind. The war is an information war. Too.
Indeed. So I have a question. Did you catch when the COVID first started coming out? There was, which I think ended up being very true, which is fascinating because oftentimes the truth is hijacked through the controlled mechanisms to make it seem like it's not true. And if you can psyop the truth and be the first, it's called first mover advantage in business. But if you can be the first to bring a product to market or whatever, then you have such more advantage over the people that come next. So with an ideology, if you're the first to bring it to the forefront, you can control how it's perceived.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic first happened, supposedly these 5G cell towers in the UK started getting attacked by activists, supposed activists, um, burning them down, saying that 5G was causing the sickness, that it wasn't really COVID, and it was a was it 77 cell towers? I want to say it was. I'm looking it up right now. Yes, 77 phone masts attacked in the UK due to coronavirus 5G. This is in May 6th, 2020. This is all over the mainstream news, and 77 is like this Freemason kind of weird number if you look into that one.
Yeah, well,
And it's
immediately
come
popped to
up.
my mind. They got the 77th Brigade. Have you heard of them? They're like you're talking about all these false oppositions. The 77th Brigade apparently are an actual organization set up to infiltrate activism and talk groups and just basically play as trolls and
Ha ha ha! Those
yeah,
fuckers. Well, then that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
perfect sense. That makes perfect sense because there was this. I'm going to get sidetracked for just a second.
I'll tell you what, Mac, hold your
Yeah.
thought 1 second because we're approaching
Mhm.
that time again. And
Okay.
yeah, I'll start the call and we'll carry on the 5G towers and the 77 as you were saying because yeah, it
Perfect.
sounds fascinating. All right, mate. So I'm just going to end the call and do that palaver again. So I'll send you the next
Awesome.
link. All right. Speak to you in a
All right.
sec.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Cheers, man. Bye. Yeah, let's get straight back to where you was. The you saying about the 77 and the cell towers or
Mhm.
supposedly being taken down here in my country in the UK.
Yes. 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 So it was this. What happened was, and again, this is a flood of information and confusion tactics right when people are being locked down in their homes and losing their businesses. And I mean, people have never faced something to this degree, right? And now they're saying that crazy conspiracy theorists are attacking their cell phone network and blaming it on 5G and getting in the way of like real research, right? Well, come to find out, 5G frequencies were being cranked up. I have these Faraday phone bags that stopped working during that time, and I had to double the material and then eventually triple the material when Omicron came out. And I came to the conclusion that they were actually right. Weird. But I don't
Sorry,
think any
you when you say that it was actually right, what was right? Sorry, that the
that 5G was making people sick.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
But they wanted to control the dialogue on the narrative and they wanted it to seem crazy. They wanted the people speaking the supposed truth to sound like um, violent, crazies, nutters, another word from over there. I love you guys' words. A nutter, right? So
Yeah.
these nutters are burning down 77 towers. All right. Now, let's take a pause. I loved what you just told me about the 77. Oh, can you tell me? I'm going to make note. Just tell me one time the name of that think tank again, the 77, Group
I
77.
think
What was
that
it?
no, the 77th Brigade,
Ha ha.
which I think they
Cool.
are actually a faction of the military, and they're yes, literally a group that's set up to create false chats on Facebook and troll,
Mhm.
basically a trolling group, and they're called the 77th Brigade. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's the thought police, and I've
yeah,
witnessed
yeah,
them firsthand
exactly.
all the time on my Facebook. I can actually, and it's blowing up in their face as we speak because I'm learning to discern every single time that I'm interacting with them. Because what they'll do is they'll try to get me in this like loopy conversation that goes nowhere, or they'll try to discredit me, or they'll say something totally ridiculous, but then because it's got like 6 likes, people are in this herd mentality. Though, oh, if other people are liking it, then maybe it's true. It's because they all do it in groups with trolls. That's why it's usually trolls is plural, because they come in, and that's why brigade is plural. It's not just like these lone operatives. Okay,
Yeah,
so the 77 number is extremely fascinating, and this is going to be a little side tangent. So I'm the chemtrail guy, and it's been a weird and difficult place for me because I bumped into a lot of controlled opposition and a lot of haters and a lot of people like mad at me for because chemtrails was the one. I mean, before like right now, people's eyes are really opening up more than ever, which is amazing. Like I took a stack of DVDs out the other day, and I size people up. I look deep into their souls, and then I go up to them and I'm like, "Hey, I made a movie about weather engineering. Here it is, Franken's Guys. Would you like a free DVD?" And before the pandemic, no one would say yes. People would, they would say, "Oh, I don't really watch movies," or "Oh, what's this about? Oh, chemtrails. I've heard, it's a dirty word. People would think about conspiracies and truth differently, but now a lot of people are looking at the world differently. They've got questions. They've got questions that they want answered, and they're open to opening their minds way more than before. And then that's why the narrative of activism is being controlled even more so than ever. So it was very frustrating and the journey of the chemtrail activists has been unreal. So a few years back, right before the narrative shifted to geoengineering as a solution to global warming, which the activist community never thought that they'd bring up chemtrails as a solution and start hammering it down to everyone's throats as something that they want to bring to the public consciousness, because it was all covert. It was all
Yeah.
behind the scenes until a couple years back. So right before they came out and said geoengineering is the solution that's going to save you, which that alone was very, it was upsetting for me, but it was also rewarding.
Boy, it's got to be vindication to a point.
Yeah, because it's a new conversation for me now. Now it's a new conversation. Now I'm saying, oh, can we debate this instead of just let's talk, let's have a talk conversation. Let's have the scrutiny and the transparency that's always been needed, and then it'll blow up in your face if we can actually have that scrutiny and transparency. But I'm not sure they're willing to have that. So just before the word geoengineering was introduced to the consciousness of the world, okay, as a good thing, because before that it was a conspiracy word,
Yeah.
right? Just before that, there was this scientific research study that came out, and it came across every front page of every publication, and it was 77 scientists have come together to prove that chemtrails are not real. And it was this whole thing. And that number 77 came across all these headlines. And I never even thought anything of it because I didn't know anything of it at the time. And now you've even informed me more. But it was like 77 out of 78 scientists agree that there's no aerosol spraying program. And so they wanted to dismantle that, quote, conspiracy, make chemtrails into this crazy idea before they introduced chemtrails, but disguised in a new scientific word, geoengineering. It's the exact, literally handing someone the exact same pig, but with lipstick on it. You know what I mean? And selling the pig for way more money, kind of thing, whatever that analogy is. So that 77 is something else. So when the 77 supposed cell towers got burned to the ground by crazy activists, making the general public think that that is lunacy that they would ever think that the cell towers were doing something, and also a double they got two birds with one stone by making us look violent, making the activists look violent. So now if I go to hand someone a chemtrail flyer, it's like, whoa, stay away from me, you violent cell tower burner, you know. Later on down the line, when it started to surface that this is closer to the truth than not, it was already so easily rejected, which is mind control. It's the purpose of propaganda. It is the purpose of psyop mind control. I don't even know if any cell towers actually got burned down. And here they are, they keep putting them up and they keep putting them up. And if we end up with another wave this winter, it'll be because other telecom providers are doing their upgrades. Not every telecom provider, I don't know who you guys have over there, but over here we have like 4 major providers. And there's different variations of 5G. There's high band, low band, mid band, and that the different bands are the bandwidths, literal widths of the wavelengths of the spectrum that's utilized for each of the carriers. And the most potent one out here is Verizon. And those Verizon upgrades are primarily on the iPhones. And so many of these iPhones are emitting so much more radiation than they ever were. And people with these family plans and all the 5G phones in their house, and they're all getting sick at the same time and having symptoms of radiation sickness, symptoms like hair loss and loss of taste. It makes you wonder. I mean, more than that, it's like I've got a master's in business administration. Actually, graduated top of my class, and I was like the statistics guy. I totally nerded out on stats because it was something that I could totally finally sink my teeth into. I said I was really into the stock market. Well, now I could actually manage and understand numbers to a degree where I could say this is causal or this is not causal. This is more just a corollary relationship. But a lot of people don't understand correlation. And that's what the hijacked scientific community has been able to pull the wool over everyone's eyes with, is this corollary aspect of things that is, it's just a relationship that you can show anything. It's like every day that I wear a red shirt, it rains. You know, that's a corollary of relationship that eventually will statistically be defied, because eventually one day I'm going to wear that shirt and it's not going to rain or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's over time and numbers and what have you. But the media can totally trick anybody into thinking anything by saying anything. I think that the phones emit a frequency. I think that we basically like even like looking at the phone and it looks at our eyes, and then we click the little emoji of I'm happy and I'm sad as the meme goes by. We're giving it our data all the time on how we feel, and emotions actually have way more power and influence on the psyche and the social construct and the collective consciousness, and this co-created collective, um, basically it's a we all are in agreement on what the collective consciousness is, so we kind of all emit a frequency together this resonance that we all put together, so everybody plays their part, it seems. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sort of relates to the whole 432 frequency, I think, and the idea of being in tune with the natural, is it the circadian rhythm, as opposed to the the alternative is the hijacking of those frequencies and putting us in opposition to our natural tendencies rather than in tune with them.
Yeah, it's so important. And I don't know if I finished my tangent. What I was saying is some of the telecom providers have put in some of their infrastructure, and they've cranked it up a little bit. And part of this amping it up makes it so that the phones are part of the infrastructure now, and they have to emit more radiation to be part of this spoken wheel, part of this mesh system that amplifies the 5G system and gets it to be able to have it everywhere, because the carrier waves are really small and they can't go the distance that the previous technology did. So as they get to winter again, I believe they might do more upgrades. Like here, there's AT&T that hasn't done as many upgrades, and over there you have different telecom providers, TELUS and Rogers or whoever. They might do more upgrades, and we might see more waves of this. Like I don't necessarily know if all of this is over at all,
Oh, I
but
don't
it's
think it is.
but to
I
see the
hope so,
correlation,
but yeah,
yeah.
I don't.
So each person needs to see can see this correlation, see through the lies, and for each person that's waking up, I think each person seeing the light and knowing the truth, it dismantles the frequency of like 1,000 people living the lie. I'm serious. It's like the metaphor and analogy or whatever, that like one sliver of light will light up a whole cathedral or a whole dark cave. It only takes a little bit of light to light it all up. And talking about circadian rhythm is super important, because we are beings of frequency. The Schumann resonance is so important. And I never stop learning as I keep eating better and detoxing and learning about intermittent fasting and mineralization. Mineralizing is so important because as you get mineralized, you're not absorbing toxins from the environment. You're not absorbing the chemtrails or the crap in whatever your intakes are, because you're up to speed on your minerals. If you're mineral deficient, then you start to see the problems. But the Schumann's resonance and the circadian rhythm, I've been learning more and more about, and I've been learning about paramagnetism, and I've been reading different books by this Philip, the author of Paramagnetism, and other books on the EMF spectrum. Um, his name is slipping my mind, but what I'm learning is, for one, the Schumann's resonance is so important for us that it is naturally everywhere, but it bounces off the ground and it eliminates itself at ground level. Otherwise, we just have free energy all around. But about 20 feet up, there is free energy by being able just to tap into that Schumann's resonance. So understanding how important grounding is, and getting our biofrequencies and all of our harmonization to that frequency when it's blasted by LED light bulbs, which I recommend you get rid of. They're actually phasing out incandescent light bulbs. Our president just said that we're going to get rid of these light bulbs next year. We're not going to be able to have these old incandescent, good, warm, nice light bulbs anymore in the United States. It's all going to be these toxic LED lights, which they're bad for you. They flicker on and off like 10,000 times per second, totally mess up your nervous system and your dopamine levels and your um, hormones, endocrine system, all sorts of things get messed up from these just the light bulbs. Just learn about the light bulbs can be
Yeah,
such
I
an
have heard about the
impactful
light
thing
bulbs, and it's
on your
something
health.
I've meant to
Yeah.
look into more because I've never been sure why they're supposed to be problematic. But I have heard that. Unfortunately, we do seem to be under attack from so many different angles. I think you said you used that term, the flood. We have been flooded by it. Just going back to what you said about the minerals and the organics, and I know you're the chemtrail guy, as you said, and one
Mhm.
thing I've heard in that sort of discussion about chemtrails and so forth is that the whole idea of organics is kind of like a false economy. They don't actually exist because they're a salt in the air, so therefore everything is kind of under that umbrella as such. So what's your thoughts on that? How easy is it to actually get genuine good organic food and minerals in in this Frankenstein type environment that we're all unfortunately caught up in?
Well, yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff that's being sprayed, the heavy metals, they're not bioavailable to the degree that the plants are absorbing them as much as people might think. And then, yeah, that's kind of a defeatist mindset to think, oh, well, everything's tainted, so I can't even bother. Why bother? Why
Yeah,
bother?
yeah,
Why
it's kind of like I've
bother?
got a hole in my boat, so rather than plug it, I'm just going to sink, kind of thing.
Right. Like I've got a friend that I used to say, there's fluoride in the tap water. And he's like, oh, well, there's this and that one. Now I got to worry about that. I'm like, yeah, you got to worry about that. Yes, you do. You got to filter it or do something about it. You can get a charcoal filter on your shower head. There's things you can do. Empower yourself with the truth. And it's not knowledge equals power, it's knowledge plus action equals power. So, our version of conventional over in the States is way more toxic than your version of conventional produce. But still, yes, organic is still better than the other one, conventional, because these toxins are being sprayed directly on the freaking plant. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't say, oh, it's being sprayed anyways. The chemtrails are thousands of feet up. I mean, and they're dissipating and getting stuck in the ionosphere. They're raining down a little bit, but we can detox them. And what are you going to not eat vegetables now because vegetables are growing outside? And
sure. So
when
they
you
spray in the skies. They are literally spraying the skies. It's not like they're spraying the skies and it's coming down into the atmosphere. I mean, I did want to ask you that. I mean, what it's just so hard to sort of stay on track because you could go off in so many different tangents. But sorry, in fact, you carry on. Maybe we'll go back to that because I do want to sort of get down to what they're actually doing and why, because I
well,
can't
just
get my head around that. And
really quick. So I've seen footage of apple orchards, and they'll go through with these helicopter looking things that are at ground level, and they're spraying directly on those apples. So if you're gonna eat conventional, then at least try to avoid the dirty dozen and get the dirty dozen, which is 12 fruits and vegetables with thin skins. Avoid those and get those organic because these pesticides are toxic. These residues are on the plants and they totally disrupt our ability to uptake minerals and all sorts of things. GMO is another confusion mechanism, genetically modified organisms. I mean, that hardly even rolls off the tongue. And if you don't have much of an education or background in all this stuff, that's confusing. And you can just do the Edward Bernays thing and pass the buck to the specialist and leave it to them because you're not a bioengineer or farmer or whatever. But what GMO basically means is they've modified the DNA of a plant. They've they've changed the molecular structure of this plant so that it can be sprayed with something like Roundup, glyphosate, something that's really, really toxic that would otherwise make that plant shrivel up and die. So they've modified it so something that would kill it, that does slowly kill us, it can get sprayed with it. Organic food has rules so that they can't get sprayed with that kind of crap. And so, like, I try to limit the intake of things like that because in the end, it's a game of limiting your toxin intake. If you got deodorant and it's got aluminum in it, throw it away. You got baking soda, it's got aluminum in it, throw it away. You know, if you've got skin products or hair products, or you're putting this disgusting hand sanitizer. I never sanitize my hands in this whole thing. And most of these hand sanitizers have hormone disruptors in them. So these kids that are hand sanitizing their hands 20 times a day and all of a sudden want to change their gender, it's no wonder because of triclosan. Triclosan is very, very toxic. Look it up. Look at your soap. Does it have triclosan? Triclosan. If it's got it in it, throw it away. If your shampoo has triclosan in it, throw it away. If any of your beauty products have it in it, throw it away. It's a product of the petroleum industry that messes your hormones up, totally flips your endocrine system, and gets you acting the opposite of how it's no bueno. It's not. You should not be intaking these toxins. So it's a game, I feel, of limiting our toxin intake to the best that we can. And I keep learning. You know, I was doing Epsom salt baths, and then I was getting tremors from it, brother. You know, Levi, mate. And I was like, how, what is this? Am I doing too much? Am I just too dehydrated? Maybe I should do more. But come to find out, Epsom salts to get my magnesium fix, they're toxic. It's actually poisonous. The toxicity levels on these things is really bad. And why is because it's not even a mind thing that I thought it was. It came out of a lab and it's synthetic. So you can get Epsom salt, but Epsom flakes, not magnesium sulfate, but magnesium chloride. The magnesium sulfate releases sulfuric acid, and you're absorbing it in your skin, you're breathing it in your lungs, you're literally making yourself sick from this stuff, you know. But this comes from research and wisdom and growing. And
Well,
I'm in my, I'm in my 40s. I'm still learning stuff.
that's scary because I don't I I don't do Epsom salts. I do the Dead Sea salts. Actually, is it the same for them? Do you
Good.
know?
No, those are mine. Those are Dead Sea salts, came from the Dead Sea. That's great. You
Yeah,
know,
because
if it came out of
I've
the
always been
earth.
suspicious just trying to buy those.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know there's different sort of standards and food grade and all that kind of stuff. And
And you can
yeah,
look it up. And also baking soda, which baking soda is great to cook with, and baking soda is good to alkalize and balance your acidity levels in your body. And there's even Italian researchers who intravenously use sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, to inject it into tumors to save people from cancer and stuff. And baking soda is amazing. But I just learned that there's two versions of baking soda. It literally says sodium bicarbonate on the box. You have to research the company. Okay. Two different companies, two different things. One of them, it's mined from the earth and it's totally safe. And another one is it's not. It's synthetic. It's made in the lab and it's not good for you. It's toxic. And these things, just because they imitate something from nature doesn't mean they should be able to call it the exact same thing. It should say synthetically made sodium bicarbonate. So there's all those sort of things. So the chemtrails, back to chemtrails. Why and what are they spraying is primarily is the constituents, because people can test the rainwater after heavy spray days, and people have taken activism in their own hands, and people have gotten really curious, and a lot of research has gone into this. We know based on analysis that the primary constituents of the sprays are aluminum, barium, and strontium. The aluminum has led to high levels of dementia and Alzheimer's, and that's something to note. And it's all connected. So fluoride will break down the blood-brain barrier, and fluoride comes from the aluminum, as you all call it, the aluminum industry. Aluminum.
aluminium.
Tongue twister for me.
Yeah,
So fluoride comes from that industry. It's a byproduct of it. So mixing fluoride and aluminum together is bad in your body. They have a chemical reaction. They came from one another. Mercury and aluminum mixed together really weird too. So if you have mercury composite fillings, you can get those removed by a dentist nowadays and get something else in there. But those off gas, mercury and aluminum into your system, and you don't want to be breathing in chemtrails and aluminum deodorant and all that sort of stuff. So it's a full spectrum learning. We have to learn all these different things and own our natural ability to heal ourselves, own our health. Healthy self, to break down the word, heal thyself. Healthy self, heal thyself. So what else is in the chemtrail constituents? There's also different things. They'll spray lithium on a city to pacify them. They'll spray manganese on protesters to make them riot because manganese agitates people, gets them going. Different chemical constituents for different stuff. In the movie Frankenstein that I made in the 1970s, the city of St. Louis, United States, the U.S. Air Force sprayed zinc cadmium sulfide, radioactive cadmium, essentially. They just sprayed it on the city of St. Louis. And then they outfit rooftops and even cars, spraying it on these neighborhoods just to see how many children would die. It was primarily children. So they tested on people, you know. Yeah, so it's different things being sprayed. Lithium, like I said, and when you have a really orange sky, you can see, or orange pink, oftentimes it's lithium. One thing that came up during the rainwater analysis that was very curious was terbium, Terbium. Terbium is a very, very expensive rare earth element, and it's used in projection on holographic television sets. So you start to go deeper down the rabbit hole. You learn about plasmification of the atmosphere to make holograms. And there's a thing called Project Bluebeam, where the U.S. government wants to make holograms in the sky. It's a public project. The claim is that they could use, in wartime, they could have a religious figure show up in the sky and voices in people's heads, or alien invasion, what have you. Maybe not even in wartime, maybe to create a new world order, they could use the sky as a hologram and have alien fleet of alien ships show up in holographic form, but then have a few stealth bombers there, like actually attacking, people, and there could be a staged alien invasion with the help of Project Bluebeam.
Well, you all said stuff about 9/11, sort of going back to that being holograms. Do you think that could be related in any sort of way? That kind of technology, if you thought that.
Yes, exactly. There? I think that they're probably like 50 years, they're probably like 1,000 years ahead in the technology that we get to see at the civilian level. So yes, like maybe we'll see fake alien invasion in like 20 years, but that doesn't mean they didn't have that holographic technology during 9/11. They probably did and had it perfected by then. But also, maybe there weren't holograms. The power of suggestion and MK Ultra on the masses, and also having people on the ground that are plants just saying, "Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that." And then CGI on certain news footage. Maybe they don't even need holograms to completely trick the world. I mean, that would be what an amazing feat to pull off in the middle of New York City in broad daylight. But I would not be surprised. Did you see the new Spider-Man or the one with all of the holographic drones?
Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man film.
He has all these holographic
Tobey Maguire
drones.
and the. Yes, I did.
So that's kind of like an interesting disclosure. These drones are creating this hologram of like a monster or whatever, but the drones are cloaked.
Oh, so I was struggling to think what you was talking about. I don't think it was the last Spider-Man. That was possibly
it's like 2 ago.
It was the one before that. I forget what it's called. It's actually set above London, above the London Bridge, I believe, the Tower Bridge. And
exactly.
Yeah, the baddie was an illusionist. Yep, I recall that. Yeah. I remember thinking at the time, actually, that was fascinating because the Marvel films in particular, I feel, are one of the main ones for showcasing what's going on or what's going on or what's going to happen kind of thing in that whole mixing up fiction and fantasy. Yeah.
hmm So that was partly, I feel, Project Bluebeam disclosure, social engineering, and all of this. And if you recall, at the end of the film, when Spider-Man is kicking his ass and they lose the cloaking mechanism, and all of the like 1,000 weaponized drones are now visible to the city of London,
Yeah.
and he does not the baddie, he doesn't even lose any confidence, and he says we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and his minions are like, what? Well, how could we? And he says, quote, they'll see and believe whatever I tell them, whatever I tell them. Like, he's like, they go, how are you going to spin this? And he goes, don't even worry about it, they'll believe whatever I tell them. Like, they'll see whatever I tell them to see,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
think that's what I was referring to. Actually, of all the things in the Marvel films, I do find the dialogue, they're very, they're not pulling any punches. They're telling you exactly how they're doing it. The psyop is being revealed through those films, particularly in the dialogue of the so say bad guys. You know, as a yeah, they're not hiding it. They're hiding it in plain sight. Obviously, most people see these films and think they're just over the top, far fetched fantasy, and with everything being upside down, the most far fetched fantasy seems to be a lot more realistic than these so say based on a true story movies that they show us. You know, so,
Mhm. Well, the whole motion of going to see a movie, the entire the idea of going out to a movie or sitting down to watch a flick is, mentally you have this temporary suspension of disbelief, like anything goes, and you're very much programmed in your subconscious at that time while you've suspended your disbelief, and you'll defend it too because now it's in the realm of fantasy, and anything in that place is under that guise. It's very wise and smart for the powers that be that create Hollywood to implant these things and keep us pacified with the entertainment while programming us. I mean, there's so much of it hidden in plain sight and they show us as it goes, but the idea of them showing us is so ridiculous, to the mainstream person, that it couldn't be true. There's something kind of off and on topic. So at the Denver airport in the United States has this conspiracy surrounding it, that there's underground bases and a lot of stuff is very questionable. Well, now at the Denver airport, they have a whole mural and a website devoted to it, making fun of every single one of the potential conspiracy theories, satirizing it. So once it's been satirized, then how could it possibly be true, right?
yeah.
Because it's such a mind fuck at that point. It's just like, how could they possibly tell everyone, laughing at themselves?
What
Like,
was
there's
it?
no way possible.
I think was it Hitler said the bigger the lie, the easier it is for people to believe it as such. So it is some sort of
hmm
really elaborate form of reverse psychology.
Well, that's the chemtrails right there. The bigger the lie, the harder it is to
Yeah,
believe, because
yeah, completely.
that's everyone's first question is, or the first retort people. Oh, there's no way that could be. There's no way that those could possibly. There's that would mean they're spending so much money every day. It's like, yes, they are. Yes.
What you say,
Or when
50 million a
we
day?
well, that's the NASA budget, 50 million a day, and that's public. And there's all these other programs ongoing. I wouldn't be shocked to hear that the chemtrail program has a budget of 50 million a day or more. Or when you're talking to people about NASA and that they lie, people can't fathom that so much effort, because the lie is so big. There's so many players, so much money, so much in every cartoon that talks about it, and every last bit of Hollywood and all the CG. And how could a lie be so big? The bigger the lie, the easier it is to fool people, because how could one get away with such a degree of lying?
Yeah, so many. Right, Matt, we reached that point again. Do you mind coming back for one more? 'Cause I know we're sort of approaching 2 hours. Are you okay to go into a fourth segment?
Well, how much time are we at?
We're
We should
sort of
probably wrap it up.
we're literally on 36 minutes, so it's going to cut out anytime soon. So we could either sort
Okay,
of
let's come back and then we'll just wrap it.
Right. So where were we? There's
Oh, we're talking about movies and stuff.
yeah, movies. Well, yeah, so I go back to the Marvel movies and the whole psychology of it. I kind of thought it was quite telling, in particular those movies, how I felt at the time when they was bringing out the End Game, and it was all about population control. And
Hmm.
the timing of it just seemed a bit ominous to me. And obviously, that was, I think, that might have even been 2019. So it was literally going into the next phase of this new world order, and here we are. And said about the dialogue of the baddies and
Hmm.
how clever they are, because it does sound outrageous to think that they're actually making films where they've actually got the bad guys revealing the plan. So it's like they almost view themselves as the bad guys as such. In particular, in the Marvel films, I felt. Have you seen? You have, I guess you've seen the Marvel films generally, sort of the whole series as they ran through. So like the whole last End Game was basically population control, and Thanos was bringing it about and sort of wiping out everybody, and his whole
Hmm.
sort of rhetoric was justification for it, the need for balance, that whole
Oh, I did see that one. I live with a couple kids, and we've probably seen everything. We've seen everything. You know how it goes. It's like they always want to watch crap, and I'm there, so it's got to be like a middle ground. So we end up watching something like that. And yeah, the population control is at the forefront of everything. And I just found out that the movie Soylent Green is based in 2022, and it's a population control narrative too, that the overpopulation had to lead to. I haven't seen it recently, but like the eating one another, Soylent Green is made of people or whatever. But the overpopulation narrative and the need to wipe out a bunch of people, it's ingrained in Hollywood across the board. So people are okay with, I mean, with what's on the horizon, it seems, because they are painting this picture of food shortages and potentially world war and famine. I mean, with you know what? Can I share something with you, Levi?
yeah, of course, man.
Um, I thought it was, and this is totally real. I was a couple years ago, no, about 1 year or so ago. I was trying to come up with like a good way to introduce Frankenstein to, like, it's not that easy making a movie. Like every idea you have is brilliant, and then a week later you think you're an idiot for that one. And it's like
Oh,
film
I can
school.
imagine.
Film school, my professor kept saying this phrase: "You've got to kill your darlings." Like things that you think are so special, like not everyone's gonna like. But I had this idea of starting off my film, Frankenstein's 2, with this climate change narrative going across the radio and people having to raise their gas prices. I found this yesterday. And I wanted to start off the movie with this narrative on the radio, and then someone's going out and changing their gas prices to $5.20. That's what I had written down to from what it was like $2.25 or something, which is what just happened. Literally, we're at $5. It's like I wasn't predicting a war. I thought it'd be some BS, like they're saying hurricane or something about global warming or something like that. But the dystopian movie that I was predicting a year ago is already happening. Like I didn't even have time to make it. So that's pretty funny. But with that said, they do tell us, and yeah, they do see themselves as the baddies. They love it. They are the baddies. They're trying, like transhumanism and all that is, I believe, to give consciousness to the real baddie, who's Satan. He can get a body here. I mean, not a consciousness. He has a consciousness, but or it to give a robot body to these like demons and all that sort of stuff. That's like a real crazy weird end game, because you asked me the why. The why is control of humanity, control who gets drought, who doesn't, who gets rain, who doesn't, who gets a crazy tornado and who doesn't. That's ultimate control. That's the drought ensued on Iran. Iran gets attacked with weather warfare all the time because they're one of the only countries left that hasn't adopted a central bank and isn't necessarily adopting the rules that the powers that be want them to. And the Georgia Guidestones even say that they want to decrease the population down to 500 million. And it's almost glamorized in these Marvel movies. I mean,
Oh, it is completely.
the baddie in the movie that you mentioned, and I love being able to even use that word baddie because it's not a word over here. But like
So not.
you feel for him. He's like, no, I'm gonna wipe out all these scum on Earth and let Earth come back anew. And it's like, well, yeah, there is a lot of scum on Earth. You
Yeah,
know, it's like they get you kind of in a way agreeing with him or sentiment, like you feel for his plight, and you're like, well, it's pretty much win-win. Either he doesn't get to kill everyone, or he does. But if he, if he can get rid of all those cunts and we can start over, then why not, right? Because there's a lot of assholes in the world. I can't go outside without seeing one. I mean, people don't even know how to drive anymore. Now that they've gotten all these jabs and they've got the mask coverings and all that sort of stuff, people pull up to the intersection and then think about what's next. Like, am I going to turn? What am I going to do? Like, there's not that forethought of I'm going to pull into this intersection and turn. It's out of control. Like I want to make just a mockumentary about driving around the freaking town that I live in.
I've
Just
heard that.
just
I've
side
heard that
note.
here as well. Yeah, the driving is just getting worse, and the zombification of the nation's just increasing exponentially. It's scary times. I mean, I think it's already in place in so many ways, and it's hard to obviously pin it down exactly to the jabs. But I mean, I've heard that there's planes crashing because of the pilots and stuff, and that's a scary thought. I'm hoping to consider going away again and doing some international travel, because when they all kicked off with the nonsense, I was like, well, I'm not getting the jab, and I live for traveling. I've got health issues that are fixed through getting a bit of sun. Is literally life transforming for me, but nevertheless, I wasn't prepared to play ball, so I kind of accepted when it all kicked off with this jab nonsense that I was stuck here in the grey, gloomy UK forever because I wasn't going to compromise. And fortunately, things are changing now. It seems we've got a window of opportunity, but there's still factors like that. The pilots. Yeah, I don't want to sort of preach the fear, and I do want to try and stay away from that. We're sort of running out of time, so I do want to try and put an emphasis on solutions and being positive and trying to sort of shine the light on the good that's been sort of done as much as shining light on the bad. So maybe we should use that to sort of segue into, say, your clothing, for example, because one of the things I admire about your work, from what I've sort of heard of you, is you're a productive activist. You're not just sort of preaching problems, you are coming up with solutions. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and tell us what you're doing on that front?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to talk about the clothing as we wrap up. And I think a nice way to kind of um, culminate the conversation is the positive aspect of all this, even though it seems a bit daunting and the devil works in mysterious ways, is we do have free will. We still have free will. And that's why there's so much trickery. That's why there's so much deception. That's why there's all of these different things trying to get us to manipulate our free will to steer us in a direction that's not, for our highest good, right? But we do still have it and it's intact. And that is amazing. And that's a blessing. And that should be very empowering. We get to decide what's next. We get to choose our own destiny. And in that, we still can dictate what happens in our future, right? It's our collective destiny and we get to play a role in it. And just because those knobheads are out there wanting to be enslaved and be victims for the rest of our lives, it does not mean at all that we cannot create the world that we came here to create, which is a one totally polar opposite of that of fear and enslavement. And we can do it. That's the whole purpose. So in witnessing all of this and being empowered and seeing and honoring our free will, we get to own our destiny, which is very much it's amazing and empowering. So yeah, the clothing line, once all this 5G talk started coming out, I didn't want to be a victim to it all. And I heard there was a fabric. And so I did a bunch of research, and I ended up in Asia researching the fabric, and come to find out the best fabric to protect from the radiation from cell towers and cell phones is woven silver. It's a silver blend that's primarily silver. It's silver over these microfibers, to polymer microfibers, to make these silver strands that are 100% silver on the outside, and then woven into a silver fabric that is like, it's literally an armor or a shield that deflects EMF radiation that's becoming excessive. And we need to figure out a way to defend ourselves and protect ourselves, especially children and pregnant women and all that. And so I created a Sparrow, Spero. It's a Latin word for hope. Sparrow EMF protection clothing. You can find it at
Okay.
sparrowgear.com or Sparrow Gear on Instagram. And Sparrow is a word that translates to hope in Latin, or I hope in Spanish and Italian. And the purpose of that is because I strive to bring hope to the next generation by offering them an option of protection and empowerment. And it's a resource of activism because people can wear this cool, shiny, silver lined clothing and show other people and bring to the awareness in the forefront that there's this invisible soup of radiation that's increasingly becoming more pervasive, and that you can opt out of it by dropping your phone in a Faraday foam bag, and then you can't get tracked and you don't have anything coming off of it. And you can totally check out for as long as you want and learn about a balance in your life and be an activist by just spreading the message and what have you. But it's super important for people to understand that there's this invisible, not to call it a threat because that's a little doomsday, but it's an invisible threat, just like the fluoride in the water, just like all these other things that we have to, we talked about the residues on the GMO food and all sorts of stuff like that. Like, there's these things that we can use as opportunities. Like I said, knowledge plus action equals power.
Well, you have sort of. I know you said you're the chemtrails guy, and you sort of progressed into 5G. And I did want to ask you what you said in terms of threats. You say you don't want to call it a threat, but we have to be real. There is threats, and it's a massive threat.
Mhm.
What do you think is the biggest threat to us? Sort of, is 5G the biggest threat? From my personal point of view, I've been following and researching for a long time, and I've always felt 5G was the icing on the cake. That I thought that was the end game. That's kind of before this COVID nonsense. I said, just going back to the Marvel movies, when they had the end game coming out, the timing of it, I felt was coinciding with 5G, and I felt that was poignant. There was reason for that. I felt 5G is the end game. I even still feel that this COVID
Um,
coincides with it, and there's a
mhm,
correlation between it. I think
definitely.
we sort of swayed a little bit with that discussion earlier about the 77 cell towers, and we could have gone
Mhm,
so much further with that. I
mhm.
did wonder whether that
So
sort the whole
the
timing of it was, as you
mhm.
said, it was a bit of a psyop, but in one way they're sort of revealing the truth, and in the other way they're using it to kind of divert people's attention. So sort of a double-edged sword as such. But do you
so
think
I do
5G?
I
Sorry.
do think that, no, yeah, and no, you don't need to apologize ever, mate. Love you. So I think that there's a very likely scenario where the jabbed have something in that concoction that interacts with 5G that will lead to probably autoimmune reactions of sorts. It seems like that is a Trojan horse, and that's going to be an issue. Yes. The answer to your question, what's the biggest threat? The biggest threat is your neighbor, literally the person living next door. And the biggest opportunity we have is befriending our neighbors and setting aside all of our differences, maybe even not talking about conspiracies if we have to, whatever it is, and literally befriending your neighbor, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, LGBTQRST, VWXYZ. I don't care. We need to honor our humanity and be friends with everybody in our community and have a barbecue and literally go back to those days where we knew each other. Because the powers that be, they have, like we just discussed, they have karmic laws. They can't just come out and they literally can't just come out and kill everybody. They have to convince us that we have to kill ourselves. And in doing so, they're trying to turn us on one another. In the United States, they're really trying to get us armed to the teeth by convincing us that they're going to take away our guns. It's a reverse psychology. So everyone's buying up guns. But all they want to do with those guns is to get us to turn on one another, whether it's a race war or a civil war of some sort. And it's all a deflection from the stars aligning for what's real is a revolution of consciousness, a takedown of the governmental regimes that are in place, and a replacement, a change of the guard is in the stars, and they know it. And what they want is us fighting, but not them. They don't want us fighting them. You know, like the CIA, what it does is it infiltrates countries and sets up religious groups and has like Sunni and Shiite or whatever it is. They'll dismantle regimes by having people fight one another, right? Take them out from within. And that's what they're trying to do with the polarization of the truth through the narratives of, yes, 77 cell towers burned down by crazy 5G activists, or the COVID deniers, or the each side of each psyop and whatever it is. It's the divide and conquer. And that divide and conquer is a slippery freaking slope when people are hungry. No shit. That is like literally what it's coming down to, because
Yeah.
gas prices and food prices are, and employment, like people are not being able to work as much. Their businesses are getting shut down. The food, all these things are going through the roof, and people are armed to the teeth. You know, what's next is we need to befriend our neighborhood. And when the shit really hits the fan, my black LGBTQ neighbor isn't going to become gunning for me, or vice versa. We're all going to be laughing at the news. You know what I mean? But that's what I have to say to that. And so please, I hope everyone can check out, at least take a look at the Sparrow Gear, SPERO gear.com. And I have a coupon code, since it's going to be primarily UK listeners, actual activist. Actualactivist.com, plural, is my website, but Actual Activist is a coupon code you can use on there to get a discount that'll help with the shipping fees or whatever. And I know the dollar is getting really strong, but still, the pound is still a little stronger. But either way, also check out frankenskies.com and frankenskies2.com. And I'm on Facebook still, thankfully, Matt Landman. Give me a friend request or follow over there. And I'm happy to answer any further questions if people have any questions. And you can email me at frankenskies@gmail.com.
So you said check out Frankenskies 2. Is that actually out and available then now?
No,
Or is it...
frankenskies2.com, just the website.
Oh,
And
right. Okay.
there will be updates on there, like a trailer for the film will be up eventually soon this year. And then also you can upload chemtrail photos or little videos and stuff. There's a spot on there you can upload things, and then there's different um, like things I've done, presentations and shows and what have you, and hopefully a link to my BitChute and things like that. But my baby is actualactivists.com. That's the one-stop shop for activism and truth, and that'll get you over to the Frankenskies and all those other things. So I encourage people to please take a look there, and to please, if you do have an option, Levi, for people to support you or set something up like that, everybody needs a little love.
I appreciate it, man. I gotta say, I gotta show you maximum love for what you said and what you've done. I just want to go back to what you're saying about the divide and conquer being. I just thought that was amazing because I just think you're absolutely 100% spot on there, and it's easily to get a bit distracted from that point. I actually forget that myself with all this going on, and I used to have that argument with people, and I don't like to have that term, that argument, because it's kind of contradicting what I'm saying, but that's at the same time as emphasizing what I'm saying. That you have discussions with people, and everyone's got a different version of what's going on, even people that are like minds. And I'd always say the one thing we should all certainly agree on is wherever you're coming from, whatever angle, the one common denominator is the divide and conquer. That's an age-old tactic, and that can't be disputed. That's still going on to this day. And yeah, I just think you sort of shone light on that in a brilliant way, and it needs to be kept that focus on that, because you're absolutely right. It's very easy now to, you said about people walking around with their masks on. I feel the same way. You feel angry with them. you think it's your fault that we're in this mess, and you don't want to, but it's very easy to get caught up. Even if you know what's going on, it's very easy to still get caught up in that division. So it is very important to not react to the hate and to counter it with the love. So yeah, I think that's a brilliant point.
Thank you. I mean, to honor our humanity is like the other day, I heard someone had died of a heart attack, and my first reaction was like, "Well, the idiot probably got the clot shot," And maybe I should have a little bit more humility, especially if I'm around their family members and what have you. My actions are going to ripple out, and my reactions and that energy that I put out is going to set the stage for how people perceive me. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
perceive people like me, and really, we're, this phrase has been hijacked, but we are all in this together. This new world order hijacking, and we're going to be in it together, especially when we're locked down. And what? Oh, I wanted to ask you if you guys were having climate change lockdowns. I did hear there was some in the UK, a wind storm event where there were like some sort of lockdown because of a windstorm. I know that that's creeping its head up, but I don't know if you've caught wind of any of that.
Um, well, funny you should say that. I've not heard of them actually doing it, but just a little synchronicity that connects us. Funny enough, I contacted you quite a while back, and I didn't get a response for a while. And literally the day that you responded to me, we actually had some really freakish weather, sort of really high winds. And that day, that yeah, we literally sort of had our first point of contact. That day, there was talk about. I didn't know there's actually talk about locking down, but they was kind of using similar rhetoric where I don't recall them ever doing it before, but we was having really bad weather and they were sort of using this whole kind of keeping you safe mantra, and they wasn't telling you couldn't, but we was being really babysat in a level and in a way that we never had before. And I remember thinking that day, well, this is a bit strange, and is this natural? They're really making the point that the weather is a bit freakish, and they was planting the seeds certainly to. I felt keep on that keeping you that whole keeping you safe nonsense that they was using. They was going down those lines again. So I could certainly
Mhm.
see where they're yeah, they're working on it, mate. They're working on it. And it's funny that that day of all days was that point of contact, because I did wonder, one, if the weather was even real, because the way
Mhm.
they was playing on it. So yeah, the Lord works in mysterious ways as such, and hopefully, yeah, we will win. But yeah, the in terms of the climate lockdowns, not yet, but definitely they're definitely planting those seeds, and they're definitely going that way, man. So
Mhm.
yeah, no time to relax yet on that front.
Well, I guess when it does happen, at least we'll have planted some seeds, so people can call bullocks or rubbish. Well, I really appreciate you having me on.
No, I really appreciate you being here, man, and I've really enjoyed it. Uh, I know you're in the middle of your day yet, so I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, really grateful for having your time speaking to you. It's been a great experience for me, so I appreciate it. And hopefully, we can do it again someday.
Yeah, let's do it. And best of luck to your podcast. I look forward to see how it evolves.
Yeah, well, hopefully it will, and I'll keep in touch. I'll send you. Shall I send you a copy once it's sort of all ready to go out and so forth? And I'll
Yes,
keep you
please
posted.
do.
I'll stay in touch,
Definitely.
man. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, definitely send it to me. And thank you. And bless you for caring. And have a nice day, brother.
I will do, and you too as well, man. Bless you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Cheers, man. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Okay, so there we have it. That is episode 2. Really lucky and really grateful to have had Matt on the show, and really enjoyed that talk. So I hope anybody that listened enjoyed it too. We fully recorded, so learned from our mistakes from the previous show. So we have grown on that basis, and hopefully that will continue to be the case. Hopefully things will get better, things will improve, and we will evolve and keep stepping the game up as we need to. So I want to thank anybody that's listened to the show. Really appreciate it. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Please go to www.4free2.com. That's 4 the number, 3 the word, 2 the number.com. Try and use the actual portal rather than going through all these social media types. because they're not really there to benefit us, so we shouldn't be there to benefit them. It's not in our best interest to be operating on those levels, on those platforms. I'm not going to draw out this talk, just say thank you very much. Please play your part to help the show in any which way you can. Share, donate, anything like that. It's all appreciated, and it'll all go towards what comes in will go back out. Basically, it'll all go towards making this endeavor improve and last and grow. So Matt's been on the show now, so he is 4free2. And if you're listening, so are you. So bye-bye.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. There is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covetousness for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No secret is revealed, 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 revealed.